This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Tazmin and Suleman, and my wonderful friend, Sarah McDowell. We have episodes that go out every Thursday, and this week we are talking about the mindset and ownership for early career success. So, this is all about how to navigate the first few months in a role, probation, relationship with your manager, so on and so forth, in a way that you can set yourself up for success. Now, if you are enjoying what Sarah and I are doing, there are various ways that you can support the podcast, and one of them is by donating via the Buy Me a Coffee link, which is in the show notes. So every little donation really goes towards us being able to invest back into the podcast and the longevity of it. Another way you can support us is to share the podcast far and wide. And today's topic is especially adapted to that because whoever is in your circle that is starting out in their career, or even, a little bit further along, all of the stuff that we talk about today is going to be really useful. Sarah and I had a great conversation about this and recognize that sometimes things in the industry, just in any industry, are not ideal. So hopefully the tips that we and strategies that we talked about in the episode are going to really help you. Right, let's get on and listen to the episode. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Tazmin.
How are you? How are you on this
I'm.
gloriously sunny day?
It is glorious and sunny. I agree. And I'm good. I'm good. I've had quite a fun morning actually because I was at an event in Worcester and I was there to record a live podcast, which was
I
quite
saw
good
you on
fun.
socials. I
Oh,
did see you.
you've been
And
spying
it
on
actually,
me.
well, I don't think it's spying if you're putting it on social.
No, I know.
I'm not following you. But no, I did see you on socials, and the person you were recording with looked really like she's really enjoying herself. It's all
Do you
good.
know what? Because of where we live quite far from each other. Well, not quite far, but we're not just down the road. So usually we record virtually. I mean, there has been a couple of times where we've been in person, but I do, of course, I love recording in whatever capacity, but I think when you're actually in person, I do enjoy it more just because I don't know, it's like more connection and the person
Yeah,
is physically there. So,
yeah.
but yeah, it was really good. I interviewed 9 people. So I had a busy old
Wow,
morning, Tasman.
that's quite intense. That is quite intense. I,
There
on
were
the other hand,
only
have
short sorry, there were only short interviews, like
okay.
5-10 minutes. So, but still, that is over an hour's worth of content. But anyway, sorry, as you were saying.
You just said that it feels more connected when it's live. And we've recorded at your studios a few times, and
We have recorded at
okay,
Lyrebird Studios in
yeah.
Worcester, 31A Barbourne Road.
If anybody would like to come and record at Sarah's studio, there are the details. Um, but I think when we record, because we are trying to get in quite a few episodes, it can feel quite intense. we will do one after the other, after the other, after the other. However, like today, for example, so for the listeners, Sarah's been working, I've been working, and it feels like a treat at the end of the day to record with you. So maybe it's because we've recorded with each other so much that the connection is there, be it live, be it
Oh,
virtual like this.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I always love conversations with you. And yeah, it doesn't matter if we're in person or virtually.
yeah.
It's always going to be a good conversation. But if I'd have to choose, I would always prefer in person.
Noted. Duly noted.
And I have to tell everyone that Tasmin is a banging cook as well. You have cooked
Oh,
for me a couple of times, a few times now, and what was that dip that you made the other when we had the podcast strategy day and we had Crystal
yes,
with
yeah.
us? You made that
Last Tuesday.
lovely dip for the crisps.
It's simple. It's tomatoes, onion, mint, coriander, lemon, salt, and green chilies, and just blitz
Ah,
it.
so
There's
good,
nothing to
people.
it. Nothing to
You
it.
you are downplaying, and then there was a homemade pasty.
Yeah,
You and Crystal got excited about your mangoes. I know I let the side down because I admitted that I'm not a big mango eater, but you
no,
guys enjoyed your mangoes, which I'm
yeah,
very happy for you both.
yeah. She enjoyed her butter chicken and rice.
There you go.
All good, all good. Now, you were talking about conversations and how we enjoy talking to each other. But today's conversation is a little bit more serious. I'm playing, so a little bit of context. We got a message from a listener saying that really enjoyed listening to the podcast, really helped them during the early part of their career. And then they said something like, um, because they had this job and the two people before them didn't pass probation, they were really worried about probation, getting through it, had imposter syndrome, and all of that. So that's one part of the background. Another part of the background is I've had conversations with people who have not got, through the 2 years, and the experience hasn't been nice. It hasn't been, I mean, it took them by surprise. It should not take you by surprise if you are not performing well, at the point of actually, you know what, I don't want you anymore. And the other thing, what I didn't realize, and I'm still not completely clued on, so don't take my legal advice here, but employees, until they've been employed by 2 years, and I think this it's a thing, there's a 2 year employment right and a day one employment right. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, for 2 years, you don't have a lot of rights. Um, there are so that's the background, and what I want to talk about today is if you are starting in a role, how can you make sure that as much as you possibly can, because whatever is in your control, that you are going through that probation period and you get through it. Now, that makes it sound as if I'm only talking to people who are at the early part of their career. Because another thing that we hear time and time again is managers are not getting the training they need to be able to manage teams.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a new person and you're being managed by somebody who doesn't have training, then don't expect them to follow the chart correctly. You need to take ownership, which is why the whole topic is about mindset and ownership and early success. However, you may also be a manager in the early part of your management career who's
Mm-hmm.
also being managed by somebody who isn't particularly trained well or supported or whatever. So it's not just for what's that? I was going to say newbies. It's not a newbie. I
Well, it
suppose it
is,
is
isn't it?
newbie to the job market. Um, so that's the context of the discussion. That when you have started a role, how can you do whatever you can in your power to make sure that that you're going to be successful in passing probation and getting to the 2 year mark?
Sounds like a much needed conversation because, yeah, like you said, we got that message from that lovely listener who reached out to us. But it's not the first time that I've heard where someone has been surprised by a decision. Because, like you said right at the beginning, it should never be a surprise because in any role, there should be sort of communication, or you should always be given the opportunity to sort out whatever that issue is. And yeah, like it should never come as a surprise. And if it does come as a surprise, then obviously there's been a breakdown in communication. And I imagine that obviously you can't always control who your manager is, and you can't always control who is above you or who you need to report to, but I'm sure there's certain things that you can do yourself as well to make sure that things are not so much of a surprise and that communication is there.
Yeah, yeah. So shall I dive in with my first I won't say suggestion, but what's the word? First piece of advice.
I want you, Tazmin, to get on that swim cap, goggles, and dive deep into that water for me and our listeners.
All right. So first
I'm
thing is,
sorry, I hope everyone has got a banging image like I do in my head of Tasmin with a pretty little swim cap on. It's got like little flowers, I'm imagining, and some goggles, and she's ready to swim. I'm just going to visualize that, people. Visualize that because it's bringing
synchronized
me.
swimming. Are we both in? We're synchronizing. Sarah
We've got
McDowell, it's really a
synchronized.
serious topic here, and you've just lowered the tone to flowery swim caps. Right, I'm going to take
You
control.
you can be serious and fun at the same time. Why can't you have both?
Because I'm quite
Anyway,
passionate about this.
okay, sorry, go.
Right.
Serious.
Understand what is expected of you from the offset. So I understand how it is. It could be your very first job, and you're not going to really be speaking a lot, and you might be nervous, and you might be worried, and blah blah, all of that stuff. But put all of that to the side. Find out what is your role and what are your deliverables right from the start. And all of the emails that HR send you say, here's the staff book, and here is this, and here is that. Look through all of it and find out what the probation system is. And even show it to your manager and say, this is what I've seen in the handbook. Is this the pattern that we are following? Is this a flow chart that we are following? And I know it'll feel weird, but just do it. Aunt Tasmin is saying, just do it. Um, And when you know what that probation period, the probation procedure is, then you can navigate it. So it may say in the first instance, you will get a document that say, here are your deliverables. In week 4, we may be assessing. In week 8, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So if you know what that is, and you can constantly be asking your manager, where are we? Where is this document? Then you're taking control. You're taking ownership. And right from our first episode when we were talking about mindset and taking ownership, all of that stuff sounds great. Take ownership, but in practical terms, what does it mean? It means doing things like this. Don't assume that your manager will guide you fully. You take initiative. You book the one-to-ones. You find out what your rights are. You ask the questions. So you are, as our friend Crystal will say, you are crystal clear on what your role is, what your deliverables are, what the milestones are, and how you are getting on at every single point. Sound good? Have you got anything to add on that one?
I really love that as a reminder to our listeners because I've been in this role. Sorry, I've been in this situation where you expect your manager to take control and know the process and guide you. But that won't always happen because you don't know how proactive they are in that. You don't know how clued up they are about it, and they're juggling other things. So it's such good advice that you can take control of this. And actually, by raising this and talking about this to your manager, you're taking away any ambiguity. That was
Yeah.
what was that word? I just
I
tried to
thought
say
I
of
you'll
um
know your ambiguity.
thank you. You're taking away any of that. You're being crystal clear, as our friend Crystal would say. And yeah, you can't assume, and you've got to take control because it's your career, it's your role, and you got to take this initiative. And actually, by doing that, not only are you sort of looking after yourself and your own well-being and making sure you're on track, but you are showing to your manager that you take initiative and you're taking control and you care and you want things to be right. So it's only, like you said, it might feel a bit weird when you first do it, but actually in doing it, this, whoever your manager is or whoever you're talking to, they'll only be impressed. And if there is any challenge or pushback, or if there is any manager that is a bit funny, then you know that's a red flag because you know what you're doing is healthy. It's positive. It's what you should be doing. So again, it helps you sort of raise any red flags or notice anything that's not quite right. So yeah, I love that because it's helpful in all those kind of situations.
Another one that I've just remembered. So supposing you look in your staff book and there is a flow chart, find out if that is part of your contract. So I've had an experience recently where somebody has been told that it's time for the probation meeting, and the email sent was it didn't feel very good to them. It was like,
Okay.
at the time, if we decide that we are not going to carry on with the employment, you'll be told at the point and you'll have to leave the building. Nice. So when they looked in the staff handbook and found the procedure and saw that procedure had not been followed, that was the challenge. And the reply back was, well, that wasn't part of your contract. So just because it's in the staff handbook does not mean necessarily that it's part of your contract.
That is a little bit shady, isn't it? Of companies, because surely that should be aligned.
Well, yes, and it's not a Mickey Mouse company, not a small company, a large company.
Crikey, O'Reilly. Okay.
Okay, so
Shocking.
that shocking, yes. Which might explain to you why I don't know if anybody can tell, but I'm actually quite angry. I'm very angry about this, and it's not nice. And actually, I'm going to say something now. If you're a manager that hasn't been trained, do you know what? That's not good enough. You go and find that training and ask your manager that you need that training so you can support your team properly. And if they don't get it, go and buy a book, go and do some research, find out, because these are people's lives, people's mental health. This is people's confidence, people's careers. And can you imagine if you're 21 and just come out of uni and being
Mm.
treated like that? It's not okay. So if there is any, I'm a bit cross when I hear, "Oh, I know you're a manager and you haven't been trained." Well, you know what? I was a mother and I wasn't trained, but I sure as hell found out how to look after her. I didn't say, "Oh, do you know what? I don't know what I'm doing." You took on that
It's
role.
yeah,
Go, go.
you're
Oh,
so right, and I can hear your passion and your anger, and it's right because it is it's not just a job.
no.
It is people's, like you said, livelihood, career, mental health, and especially mental health for anyone in the workplace. But especially if you are really young in your career, you're going to be really impressionable and you're going to be new to stuff. So this sort of like at any point of your career, anything that's going to wobble you is going to have a big impact. But more so when you're so young in your career because you don't know. And yeah, like you need to be supported, right? And actually, it's not, companies need to do better, managers need to do better. And these things need to be raised, don't they? In conversations, and these things need to be communicated because people need to be protected
Yeah,
in their career.
absolutely, absolutely. And a manager's role is to develop their team. So give them the best possible chance. Okay. The next thing is you mentioned communication right at the beginning. So if in the process of having your one-to-ones, your manager says to you, "Oh, this area you've fallen short at. You need to get better." Ask them, what does that look like? Because telling somebody you need to get better is the first part of it, but then how? What do you want them to do?
Mm-hmm.
And if
Yes.
the manager can't answer the question, something's not right.
Yeah, because there is something missing there, isn't
Yeah,
there? Or something that doesn't feel authentic or genuine.
yeah. Um, Document your progress. So I mean, first of all, absolutely schedule regular one-to-ones with them. Look at your staff handbook again. Find out what regular means. Is it every 2 weeks? Is it every 3 weeks? Is it every 4 weeks? And even if your manager doesn't schedule them, you schedule them. They
Yeah.
can move them around, make a note. If the manager has not attended a one-to-one, make a note.
Take accountability
Take
of,
accountability.
yeah.
Absolutely. And like I said, if they say to you, "Oh, you need to get better at writing emails," okay, can you give me an example? Can you guide me through this? That's what they're there for. That's their job.
Yeah.
Right.
And if they can't give you an answer of how to do it, they need to give you a way to get that answer. So, for example, maybe there is feedback that your SEO reports or your search digital marketing reports aren't being well received by people higher up, or they're not being understood. You need to be able to have a conversation with a manager and be like, okay, can we talk about this? Because whilst if they don't have answers, they need to work with you to try and find the answer
Yeah,
somehow.
absolutely.
um I'm just looking at the time, Tasmin, and we do need to take a short break.
Well,
Is
then it
there
means
more?
there's
Oh,
just one more
one
thing,
more.
and
One
then we'll
more,
go for
that's
the
it.
break. So again, if your manager is saying you need to get better at, I don't know, presenting the team meetings or analyzing this data, and you ask them, okay, what does that look like? If it is something that you don't know how to do and you need support, and one of the things I used to hear a lot was, I need to be trained. Companies don't like training, they don't want to spend the money, they don't have the budget, whatever it is. Not every company, obviously. Ask them, what can you do to support me in my development on this?
Nice. Nice.
Use
Very
the word
important.
support rather than always ask for training, because if they're saying you're not reaching the bar, fine. What does that look like? What does a bar look like? And how are you going to support me in my development to reach that bar?
Wonderful. I love all those tips. They're very actionable, very practical. We are going to take that short break so people can consume this information, let it sit with them, ruminate. I'm going for all the big words. Tasmin, what's in part two? Tease why our listeners need to come back.
So this is the way you will deal with the external, with your manager. The next part is more about your well-being and your own learning and development.
Lovely. So join us for part two, folks. Sarah here, just quickly popping on to let you know about how you can support the podcast, how you can support me and Tazmin. So, first things first, we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which means you can give us a one-off donation. Thank you to everyone who has done that already. If you fancy doing that, the link is in the show notes and we'd be very much appreciative. And another way is help us spread the word. Get more people to know about the podcast. Tell your colleagues, friends, loved ones, hey, even your pets. Next time you're listening to an episode and you think someone would really love it, find the link and why not share it with them?
Hi, Tasmin here. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Be more visible, earn more, but also take care of your well-being and have work-life harmony? Well, I can help you because I'm offering you a free 30-minute consultancy call. Together we can go through where you want to be and how to get there. Simply click in the link on the link in the show notes, fill in a form, and I'll get back to you.
We're back for part 2. Tazmin, are you still with us?
I am not quite so angry. Calmed down a bit now.
Yes, feeling more zen because you are Zen Queen. That is your nickname.
Well, I wasn't very zen today, was I? Amina's gonna, Amina, yeah, from Vixen, she's gonna think, what's happened to Tasmin?
But I think this topic that we're talking about is going to resonate with so many of our listeners. So, yeah, and it's good to get passionate and fired up and angry about something. So, part 1 was ways to protect yourself. Yeah, ways that you can make sure that you know what is expected of you, know how the company works, what the probation process looks like, not assuming, taking ownership of that process and understanding what is expected of you, because then you can avoid these shocks or things happening out of the blue. And things will always happen out of the blue. You can't control what you can't control, but there's things that you can control that will avoid these situations. So what are we now going to talk about?
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about well-being and remind everyone, this goes for everyone, your mental and physical health is the thing that's going to sustain your career success. So don't mess about with it.
Right.
Right.
Yes, you do mean business today, Tasmin. I can really tell and I'm loving it. But yes, not to take away because this is very serious, but yeah, you matter. Your brain, mindset, well-being matters. You got to look after yourself, otherwise if you don't, what's going to happen?
Well, they are your biggest assets. So don't let anybody, any organization, any individual tamper with it. You look after it. It's your responsibility. Going back to ownership, what does ownership look like? And in the workplace, the one thing I want to say is your breaks, they are mandatory. Lunchtime is your legal right. It is not a perk of the job. It's not something that, you know what, if they're feeling good about it and if it's a good day, you can have a lunch break. Don't do it. It's a slippery, slippery slope. And when we talk about boundaries and how boundaries, will protect your mental health, your physical health, that is a boundary. So if you can go into the job scene and know that internally, your own self, this is a boundary that I'm going to keep, then it's easier. Don't expect other people to respect that boundary. You take your lunch break.
Yeah, because as soon as you stop respecting that and you start doing working lunches or you work hard, then you're just setting yourself a precedent of that, and people aren't going to respect that. And it's not just lunch breaks either, is it? It's knowing when you start work and when you finish work. And don't get me wrong, there's always going to be projects that are going to pop up and you might have to do some additional hours, and you might have to work later or come in earlier. But again, make sure that doesn't happen that often, and try and take your time back if you can, because your work-life balance matters, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this sort of goes into what we were talking before the break as well. So I think it's all going to merge into one. If you're given a project saying, "Oh, can you get this piece of work done? Can you analyze this data?" So I had this client, her manager had come back from from maternity or paternity, and they were really fired up, and they would call at odd times, and they would say, "Oh, can you analyze this?" And what she was really struggling with, which she got better at, is asking, when do you need this by? How deep do you want me to analyze this data? What is the purpose of this exercise? Is it to, and those sorts of conversations, you are clarifying what that job looks like. Because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
know, then there's a tendency to think, okay, you know what, it's the end of the day, I haven't finished, I'm just going to carry on and carry on and carry on. So be really clear about what your deliverables are on that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of organizations now will have WhatsApp groups, which is fine, social. I'm popping to the coffee shop. Does anybody want something? That's fine. But if you don't want to be part of those conversations after work hours, you don't have to.
Mm. And arguably, maybe it's a good boundary to not be part of the conversations, because, of course, and I think there's differences here, isn't there? Because there might be people at work that you have a really good friendship with, or there's a group of friends, and you're friends because of work, and that's how you've met. And maybe you're friends outside of work and you have conversations that aren't to do with work, but there will be lots of chats nowadays. There's lots of different ways that businesses can communicate and teams can communicate with each other. But if you let that creep into out of hours, then that's another slippery slope, isn't it? Because you might think, oh, someone's asked, I don't know, let's think of an example. Someone wants to know traffic for this day, or search volume for this topic. And you might think, oh, that's a really quick and easy thing for me to do. Let me just put down my pie and mash and have a little look. That even if it's a quick job, you still shouldn't be doing that in outside of your work hours, because those are your precious work hours. And actually, the more that you do that, the more it's going to creep into your other relationships, your relationships with your partner, your relationships with your friends, relationships with your family. Those are sacred,
Yeah.
and they
And
need to be protected.
yeah. And when you sign off, that is your time to recharge so you can turn up at work again tomorrow feeling fresh.
And when you recharge, it will, because you might think, oh, I really need to finish this project right now. But actually, your brain is so frazzled. Like, my partner's a tutor, and she was saying that your brain can only concentrate for a maximum of 20 minutes. That's why the Pomodoro technique works really well. So if you've had a long day anyway, and you're really, really like testing your brain late into the night, what, like, is the quality of the work going to be good? It's just going to take you longer. So it's much better just leave it a day and get back to it. We're not doctors or surgeons. No one's life is at risk if we leave it one more day. We're in SEO, we're in marketing.
Even the financial markets, they close at a certain time. You don't know, you
There you
don't have
go.
currencies traded throughout the night, do they? They close. I'm sure they carry on working in other ways, but anyway. Um, Social stuff. So if there is a team that is very social and what you are used to isn't aligned with that, feel free to say, I would love to be part of this social group. However, that thing isn't going to work for me. So if I was part of a team that on every, I don't know if people do this, every Friday went for a pub crawl, for example, well, I don't drink. And there's only so many lime and sodas you can have, honestly. Like you get to a point where you think, I'm done now. And actually, I don't even know if that's what I'd want to spend the evening with. So it's really being clear. I'm happy to be part of the team. I'm enjoying being part of the team spirit, but that particular activity won't work for me. Can we explore
And
other ways?
as I was going to say, yeah, you can definitely suggest alternative activities and stuff because there will be other people in the team or there'll be other people in the company who's probably thinking similar to you, but they just go along with what has happened because that's all that's happened in the past. So it takes someone to be like, actually, could we potentially explore doing X, Y, and Z instead? Because, and actually, you might find something that is a team that you prefer doing better together, and it's a better use of time.
I am conscious that there was so much I could have put in this, so much. I stripped so much away. I'm going to go on to the last point, and then I've got a call to action for everyone listening. So, the last point
Lovely.
I want to talk about is your own learning and development. There might be a tendency to say, well, if the organization aren't going to help me learn this thing, I'm not going to do it. They've not sent me for training. They've not this, they've not that. Seek out your own learning opportunities because this is about your life. It's not about them. It's not about your manager. Should they be doing it? Yes. But if they're not doing it, you do it. And it's not for them, it's for you. It's for your career. So read, find a course, find a mentor, whatever it is, but you don't let a a role that isn't delivering on these things get in the way of you and your career success. Own your own learning and development. And look for opportunities in the workplace. So often we just see a task as a task, but think, what is that task teaching me? What new skill can I be learning? What new skill then
Mm,
do I bank? This is your playing field to gather the skills, to bank the skills, to be able to say later on that I was really good at leading team meetings because I did that every month, whatever it is. So
mm.
it's all about your development.
It
Look for,
is. It
yeah,
is. And sorry, just to add my thoughts on that as well. Um, it's so true that the onus is on you, and it's only you that can make things happen. So, like you said, there are always going to be ways that you can develop. And if your company aren't helping, then find alternative ways. But also, maybe there's just a way that you need to have the conversation with the company or whoever looks after finance or your manager. And maybe there's a way to sort of talk to them and be like, actually, if I do this course, if I do this thing and I develop myself, this is what the company's going to get out of it as well. So it's a reminder that it's not just you that benefits, but it's the company. And if you're an agency, or the clients that can benefit as well. So there are ways that you can have those conversations. And I mean, for me, it would be a red flag if a business didn't support learning and development because that feels a bit weird that they wouldn't. But there is always ways that you can have that conversation and, yeah, get them thinking about it differently.
yeah.
But as I
And
said, yeah, but
yeah.
yeah.
And you can always suggest that, I'll go and learn it and then I will then share that knowledge with other people. But this is about finding those little opportunities where you will learn skills that are really vital. I'm going to share a little story. It's not a workplace story. So years ago, when my son started his GCSEs, he was in a school and then the school merged with another school. And the way it all worked out, I don't know how, but apparently GCSE geography, they were told to take it, but they weren't going to take the exam. Don't remember why. And most of the kids said, well, what's the point of doing GCSE geography? What's the point of going to the class if I'm not going to take the exam and get the grade? And what my son said was, because you're going to learn skills in GCSE geography that you won't learn in the other subjects.
Do you know what? Your son is proper switched on, even at a young age.
I didn't think of it like that. And he was telling his friends that every subject we take isn't just about learning how to do maths or learning how to do English. Each one is helping us develop a different set of skills, which will then help us in our degree and in our futures. So think of it like that.
Well, a very smart man is your son. I can tell where he gets it from, Tasmin. All these wisdom, all this nuggets of information. But yeah, very true.
Very
Very
true.
true.
So, yeah,
Skills, knowledge is always transferable.
absolutely. So look for the gaps, find a way of filling them. Don't wait for anyone to fill them or fix it for you. And be curious and ask really, just ask the questions. And I mean, we've touched the tip of the iceberg, but the main purpose of this episode was to talk about the probation, to make sure that you're protecting yourself and what you can do around that. So my call to action is anybody who's listened to this and thought, "Oh gosh, maybe I need to be doing something about this." Listen to the whole thing again with a piece of paper and a pen and write yourself a checklist. Check staff handbook, book one-to-one with manager, whatever it is, and just go through it and keep at it. Because the more, what's the word? Again, ownership. The more you own your own development, your own career, the more likely is that you're going to be successful.
I've got an alternative call to action, Tasmin. They could book a call with you.
Yeah, they could reach out some way or the other. Oh, I'm gonna just my laptop's dying, Sarah. Yeah, just
Shock horror.
book a call. But yeah, just I need to say stay safe. I want you to be safe in the workplace.
You should. And I would urge people to do call to action 1 or call to action 2, but I would thoroughly, highly, actually is a better word, recommend reaching out to Tasmin and booking a little consultation, a little call with you just to chat through this stuff, because Tasmin is wonderful at guiding, being very helpful, giving all the advice. So there's always links to Tasmin in the show notes of how you can connect with her. But yeah, if this is something that you want to talk about, you're going through something like this and it's triggering, or you're struggling, or maybe you've just taken on a new role and you want to talk to Tasmin and pick her brains, reach out and book in with Tasmin. That's another call to action, I would say, folks.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the episode, Sarah.
Sad times. Well, hopefully you start. It's a very good episode, very important topic. You started with anger, and it was right that you felt angry. But are you feeling, now that we've spoken about it, we've given our listeners loads of strategies, tips, practical things they can implement to help them with their next probation period, or other things in the work space. Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
feel
we've
better.
helped. There we go. There we go. All right. Well, that's it then. That's it for this week, isn't it?
Well, not quite. Just a reminder to all of our listeners that if they're enjoying what we're doing and want to support us, and there are various ways we can do this. One of them is to donate via the Buy Me a Coffee link, which is in the show notes. And Sarah, you and I were talking about this last week when we had our strategy sessions. So for transparency, this really helps us keep the podcast going, covers costs, because Sarah and I um, are doing this because we're passionate about it, but there are costs for the software and all sorts of things. So if you are finding the episodes valuable and want to contribute to this and the longevity of the podcast, and we would be ever so grateful.
Yes. So a virtual coffee on Buy Me a Coffee, link in the show notes, would be very appreciative, and massive shout out and thanks to everyone who has already done that. And another way is word of mouth. Word of mouth is a cracking way of spreading the word of a good podcast. So the next time you listen to an episode, maybe this episode, and you're like, crikey, Margaret. I don't know why Margaret came into my brain. My grandma was called Margaret. Maybe that's why. Margaret would love this episode. Find a link to wherever you're listening to us and share it with them. And yeah, help us spread the word, because the more people that we can get listening to us and helping, the better the whole SEO industry workplace will be.
And actually, I'm going to go back into Auntie Tasmin role. Share this one, because there will be people in your circle, and they don't have to be SEO. The things that we've talked about
True.
translate to any industry, absolutely any industry. So if you have anyone in your circle, especially those that are just starting in the workplace, please, please, please send this link to them so that they too can have the best possible chance. I mean, I'm not saying just because I said it, but sound quite pompous then, don't it?
You could never sound pompous. Right, shall we wrap up, because
We
we
should.
have massively gone over time
Oh
now, and
gosh.
we always do.
Well, it's yeah, goodbye from me.
And bye for me.